Hello, Mr. Chamberlain here. We're going to be talking about taking the cylinder head off this D9 today. So I'm going to go over a little bit of what it entails so you can get an understanding of that. So the first thing to understand is, let's say that the cylinder head has got a problem, you got a valve that's damaged in it and you have to take the head off to do a valve job on it. So what that means is you could do this in chassis, you could do this in the boat, in a truck, whatever. The secret to this is, the service manual won't explain it to you completely, is take the least amount of things off that you have to get the cylinder head off. It would be the same idea that you have if you were doing a outboard engine and you have to pull the power head off. I'm not going to take everything off the power head just to pull the power head off the outboard. I'm going to get in the midsection, I'm going to find the bolts underneath, I'm going to unbolt it. If I have to disconnect a fuel line, maybe a battery cable, a shift cable, or something like that, and then I can take the power head off complete. Do what I have to do, put the whole power head back on. So the idea here is to take the least amount of things off you need to take off to get the cylinder head off. So let's look at that side of the engine a little bit. If we look down here, the cylinder head ends someplace down here. So that means this intake manifold can stay on the cylinder head. You could take this off and put blocks of wood on a bench and set the cylinder head on blocks of wood and not have to take that off. I may want to get the turbocharger out of the way just to get it out of the way. I probably don't have to take your the aftercooler off. I don't have to take the transmission cooler off. Okay. This I'm going to have to get out of the way. I'm going to definitely have to get this oil filter bracket out of the way. The other thing to remember is to look underneath. So what we want to do is kind of poke around under here, look at that dividing line of the cylinder head and see what bolts into that area. I have a lifting bracket here, that's going to be in the way, a couple bolts to get out of the way, not too bad, I can get at those. I have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 bolts that I have to get at. If I can't get at those, then yeah, now I have to start taking other things off. If those bolts are hidden behind a bracket or behind a component, I have to take them off. But that's where we want to take a quick evaluation to think, okay, what have I got to do to take this apart? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign you guys a service manual, the D9 service manual. And in that manual, it's going to tell you how to take the whole engine apart. One of your virtual labs, which you would actually do if you were taking this engine apart, is you would have to find those components that you have to remove. You have to pull that out of the service manual because you still got to put it back together. So one of the things you got to remember is to make sure that you locate the components that you have to take off, find those in service literature, get a notebook, write down what that component is, and then write down what the torque spec of the bolts and where they go. As you are taking it apart, you're going to do the same thing in the outboard class. You're going to tag and bag the components. So if I have to take 5 bolts off the intake manifold and the brackets to get the cylinder head off, then I have to write those down. They may be in different positions. You got a phone, you got a camera, it works great. So just take a couple of pictures, write a couple notes in your notebook, and what you want to do is be systematic. So wherever you start on the engine, you want to work in a circular pattern. So I'm going to start over here, I want to take this back bracket off, I want to get these oil filters out of the way, and then I'm going to maybe work myself clockwise around the engine. This way, you can actually say, okay, in my notes, I took this off first, all right? These are the bolts, these are the torque specs, these are the lengths, these are the locations. You can write a little note, write in your notebook on what you took off. Once you've done with that, that component comes off and you're happy with that area, then move and start a new chapter in your notebook, okay? And that's gonna be maybe over here, I have to take this expansion tank and I have to take my crankcase ventilation housing, and there's some circuit breakers off. I got to get this out of the way to see what's behind it. Any harnesses that you run into, what you want to do, take a piece of tape, blue masking tape, you know, the painter's tape, and write what that component plugs into it, because it may not be as easy to remember where it all goes. The other thing you can do is you can tag or take a picture, it's up to you, what that component is that that harness plugs into. So this way, when you come back, you go, oh, that says it's a crankcase pressure sensor. Well, where is it? If you took a picture, there you go, now you know. Or if you wrote in your notebook, it's right below the crankcase ventilation filter housing. That way you get an idea. But again, just to review, take this, start on one location of the engine and just start working your way around in a circular path. Come around here and keep working until you get all those components off the engine, all right? I'm gonna move you over to the other side. Actually, I'll move you in a clockwise pattern here, and we'll just go over some of the names of the stuff. I can get a little closer for you. There we go. Okay, over here, your fuel filter, and this is your primer. This is how you fill that filter up. This engine is an electronic unit injected engine. So it's got electronic unit injectors under here. It's also overhead cam engine. So if you see this hump in the plastic cam cover, this is the valve cover, and it also covers the camshaft. That will be the cam gear. So there's a big cam gear under here that you're gonna have to deal with, and the gear timing as well. So we're gonna take this whole bracket off. So if we start looking at it, I could take these bolts off. I gotta take some oil lines off because they're solid. So those have to come off. Try to remember, loosen both ends. Don't loosen it up and bend it out of the way. That's a bad idea. That's just not a good idea. I would, if I was taking the engine apart and doing a cylinder head job, the filters are going off and going into a bucket. I'm gonna put new oil filters on it, new fuel filters. So that would be the first thing I would do. We're just gonna leave these probably on here for right now, take the bracket and lay it out of the way. As you go behind that, there is another bracket here, and that bracket may bolt to the cylinder head. Once you get this assembly out of the way, then you'll know if that's underneath there. Once you get to that point, now you can start coming clockwise. So we'll come around the other side of the engine here. All right, so we have another lifting bracket over here. That's probably gonna have to come off. Again, a couple of easy bolts to get at. You have the speed sensor here connection, or a camshaft sensor connection. I can't remember which one it is. Get this hose out of the way. That way you can get at brackets real easy. If I start looking down here again, here's my parting line right here. So my parting line for the cylinder head is right here. So I don't have to take my heat exchanger off. I don't have to do that. I am probably gonna need just to disconnect this, and I'll probably wanna take this bracket off just to get it out of the way, because that's gonna be below the cylinder head when I take it off and I set it on the bench. I have this bracket here, which also pins into the cylinder head, and it's bolted, so this absolutely has to come off. Try to remember that if I could get this off with this attached, just leave it. Don't start taking stuff apart that you don't necessarily need to take apart. It'll take a mirror and a flashlight sometimes to look at that, but you'll get the picture. Got a hose here for that crankcase ventilation filter. Take that hose off, get that out of the way, okay? I've got a sensor here that's going into the block. I've got another sensor up in this bracket, and I've got another sensor that goes over the back. Again, if you are lucky and you look on the engine, these are gonna actually be labeled. So this one goes to the fuel sensor on the filter housing, and this one is labeled and it says to a fuse. So there's a quick connect there. So what's nice about some of these larger engines is they are labeled. The connectors are all labeled, so you really don't have to. I see students in the past have actually labeled, 17, 18, 19, they use their system, whatever works for you, you use it. Also for when we were teaching a class for sensors and electronic control systems, they wrote some notes and put the tape on there so they could remember which one's which, because these all look the same, and you won't know which one's which. When you see the picture in the book, it'll tell you that, but why not just label it so you'll know which one you need to look at, all right? So I don't have to take the heat exchanger off. I have also a fuel-cooled ECU, an engine electronic control. So this is my engine computer, all right? Obviously down here, we have a gear-driven pump, and this is the actual gear pump that feeds fuel up through the bracket inside the ECU, and then that goes up into the cylinder head and it feeds the unit injectors. So it's a gear-style pump that's feeding fuel up into the unit injectors. We'll go around the back side of the engine now, and actually the front side of the engine, because I'm in the back. And we might be able to finish this off on the front and see where we're at. Okay, again, I'm gonna just kind of come down here. Maybe I've got a notebook with me, I'm taking some quick notes. Maybe I'm taking a couple of pictures real quick with my phone so I get a visual. I always do a 360 when I do a major job like this with my phone. Multiple pictures, multiple angles, and do it in a format so it's systematic. Just don't walk around the engine. You want to do a full 360 view. You could use a video too, and a video will work fine because you can pause it and place it back. But sometimes you want to zoom in with a camera, and maybe that'll help a little bit. So bracket, this definitely has to come off because this is going to be in the way. There's a bracket here that receives, all right, coolant from the cylinder head. And there's an O-ring in there. When you take this off, if you're gonna replace it, all those O-rings have to be changed. So here's another part of this is, as you start looking at this, start thinking about what do I need to order? What parts do I need? So as you do your 360, walk around, taking pictures, taking video, get a notebook, say, oh, I'm gonna need this O-ring. You know, maybe I'm gonna need this gasket. I'm gonna need that gasket. Obviously the simple things you're gonna remember: valve cover, cylinder head gasket, but there's maybe 20 or 30 gaskets on the top of this engine, who knows, that you may have to change. The other thing you gotta remember is, I've got banjo fittings here. So I have fuel fittings and I have fuel washers. I'm doing a $15,000 cylinder head job on this maybe. I am not skimping on those washers. So I'm gonna order every single one of those that I need for that job, and I'm gonna replace every single one so I don't have to think about a stupid fuel leak later, okay? So again, that parting line down here, get this hose, get this bracket out of the way, and then we're pretty much wrapped up at that point. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start taking some components off. I'll take some pictures, I'll take some more video, and then as it comes apart, I'm gonna get it to the point probably where the cylinder head will come off. I'm not gonna take the cylinder head off. I'll show you the brackets that I made to go on it. But we're gonna definitely go through camshaft removal. We'll go through rocker shaft removal. We'll go through gear timing because that's real critical. We're gonna go through gear lash because that's real critical on the gear train. And those are gonna be assigned for this class in the service literature. That literature is already on Canvas. So if you want to download it and start looking at the D9 as well, if you want to look at the D16 book and kind of compare and contrast what's a little different, that is a power generation engine. That's non-marine, so that has a giant aftercooler, air aftercooler in front of the radiator on it. So you could compare that to having a heat exchanger, okay? And a water-cooled aftercooler instead of an air-to-air cooled aftercooler, okay? So I'll continue on, and I'll have some components taken apart, and then we'll come back and discuss that. Email me if you have any questions again, always.